around like 2016 or something that was like in and cool to have everything kind of beige. And now it's moving out. And like now I know my apartment, I have a lot of cool girls living there. So it's like orange curtains, fuchsia couch, bright, loud rug. Like let's fuck it up, you know? It's fun.
I think it's, as much as I love Chip and JoJo, I think it was a lot of their doing.
Are they the ones that did like that font that says like dream?
No. They did Shiplap. Shiplap in, what was there? Pergolas. Oh man, did they love a pergola back then. I really enjoy them as people, but they've expanded their color palette as well, I feel like.
Yeah. And I get it. It's a safe starter. You know, you don't want to start your house with making it look like a Beetlejuice when they're going to eat dinner.
Speak for yourself.
Speak for yourself, which is kind of what mine looks like, but I love it.
Lily's Dark Materials, first time catching a live. Hello. Is that Dark Materials after the book series? Because that's one of my favorites. Hello, everyone. I'm Natalie Jean.
I'm Amber Nelson. Thank you for tuning in to Someplace Underneath. We are going to talk about a lot of cases today. You know, and I would like to say, because a lot of these issues are with children, that it's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be very depressing, but children are starting to get rights. And I think that we should be talking about these because they deserve to be protected and spoken about. They cannot fend for themselves. They physically can't. They're too small. And they're going to grow up to be adults and raise children of their own. I personally have seen people treat their kids as property, and then
then they grow up and then they're not super excited about everything.
Yeah, and then that's like 2 generations of like messed up people. So maybe this will lead to a better world.
Yeah, let's figure it out. Maybe they will. If not, you know, sometimes I like to put things in perspective. I love talking about space. I love space facts. Mm-hmm. And right now, experts estimate that there's about 50 sextillion planets in the known universe that have the potential for harboring life, which I find awesome.
Wow.
So amongst those many sextillions of planets, maybe there's a better planet.
Maybe where they treat their children kindly.
Yeah.
And good.
Yeah, maybe. It's a fun, if you guys have never seen the Penny Project, it shows you essentially how much certain amounts of pennies look like. Mm-hmm. And so you can see what like 1 quadrillion pennies looks like, which is compared to the Empire State Building. And then if you put that in your mind and then sort of understand how like that picture you can look at was the quadrillion pennies is times by 50 times 50 and all this stuff, like so many pennies it would be hard for you to imagine even. Mm-hmm. And each one of those pennies represents a planet that potentially has aliens on it. It makes me excited.
Yeah, it seems like you could just go dive in those planets like Darkwing Duck. What was his name? Not Darkwing Duck. Who was that other duck? Scrooge. Thank you, Scrooge McDuck.
Oh, Darkwing Duck's a nice deep dive, though. Deep cut. When there's trouble, you call DW. Darkwing Duck.
That was 90s?
Yeah.
Man, the 90s shows that was a hit.
Speaking of, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it's because that's kind of when I was growing up, but whatever.
Time, it just passes. It just passes. And in a sadder note of that time passing, it's actually the 8th anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting today. I can't believe that's 8 years ago. I would have guessed 3. Yeah. 8 years ago happened 2016. And that, of course, is when a sad broken loser shot and killed 49 people and wounded 53 at the club in Orlando. Here's a picture of all of the victims, or some of the victims. All. Yes. Believe. So this is people who lost their lives in that shooting. I just think it's nice to reflect on that and think about them briefly. And if you want to learn a little bit about each of the victims, the Orlando Sentinel paper, you can go to their website. They did a nice breakdown of each of the victims' names and some information about their lives and how their families felt about them. And it's just good to reflect upon these things.
Reflect and remember. Exactly.
Of course, it being Pride, but also just because that is just an unbelievable... I can't even process seeing death like that? Like if you were present that night, seeing that?
No, and in like real time and not knowing like where to go.
How much that would change you as a person.
And the survivor's guilt, that's a big thing too.
Totally. So yeah, just think of those people today and be thankful, I guess, that we're here, even though this planet makes me real mad sometimes.
Oh, Eleanor Conda Pass 69. Amber, how's that new table you built treating you? So far, so good. I just need it. It's a craft table, and I will say you kind of need an engineering degree to put it together. I should have brought the plans over here just to show you how. And I'm kind of proud of myself that I was just like, all right, this is a lot. Let's take it step by step and let's breathe through it.
Which table is this?
It's a crafting table I got for my house, so I can sew, and then I can do streaming on my own if I want to, if I ever just want to gab.
Write a manifesto.
Write a little manifesto. But yeah, it's going great. Thank you.
Fun. Cool.
Listening from the Isles of Home Goods, GR8O David Ravens. Yes, hopefully they don't have the beige cups.
Great, Odin's Raven. Is that Anchorman? I think it is. I love a Home Goods. I don't know if it's ethically good or not, but I do love it. I feel like, where did all this stuff come from?
Here it is.
But it's right there, and it's pretty cool. And I'm grateful for it. Another little, at the top here, we had somebody reach out asking if we could mention, this is a missing case of a woman named Elizabeth Green. She is from Utah. She's 21 years old. She's been missing since April. And she was a rancher, and she was walking to work. She disappeared on that walk, which...
It was a dirt road. Like, people say it's 3 hours away from the next town.
Yeah.
My heart goes out to her. And how many people have to walk to their job, to their school? Because everything's so far apart, and it's just so easy to go missing. Yeah,
and she was so young. She is so young. We hope that she's found. It's really hard to maintain safety when you have to walk to your job, especially on a dirt road that doesn't have a lot of traffic on it. I can't imagine how scary that would be. She is 5'11" and 125 pounds, so a smaller frame, but very tall. And she has light brown hair and green eyes. And she was last seen wearing a pink tie-dye hoodie, light blue jeans, and black Converse shoes. If you have any information of seeing somebody or thinking you have some memory of something happening, this was the date she went missing. Was it April 21st? I think police began looking for her on April 18th, my birthday. But I think maybe the day before. Mm-hmm. So mid-April. If there's anything that sticks out to you, that sounds something familiar to you, you can call the sheriff's office at 801-794-3970, reference case 24JC0335. I hope her family has answers soon. Yes. And we're sorry about this situation. That's very sad. But we always maintain hope with missing cases. That's why we want to do the show, because sometimes people are found and they're okay at the end of the day. Yeah. Someone who I'm not hoping is okay, and I don't think will be, is Stephan Sterns, who is now in jail awaiting trial. He is the man who has now been charged with the death of his girlfriend's daughter, whose name was Madeline Soto. She was 13, and he had an extensive amount of CSAM of her on his devices. And it also turns out that he ended up taking her life. They right now are saying it's most likely from strangulation. Not sure what he's going to say about that, if he's going to try to say it's an accident or whatever. It doesn't really matter. What he was doing to her for years is unforgivable. Like, and the mother too. So yeah. What are we doing here? You let your daughter sleep in the bed with your boyfriend? Dude, I have so much anxiety. I cannot with this mother. I cannot. She's currently not being charged with anything. I feel like people are going to riot if she's not charged with something, but they have now upgraded Stephan Sterns' charges, and he is now facing the death penalty. Again, as somebody who just said on the last show with Chad Daybell, he's being charged with death. I'm opposed to the death penalty, but guys like Stephan Sterns, they really try me. I don't know what is going to happen he's not necessarily going to get the death penalty, but there's no way he's getting out again. I mean, he would be ripped limb from limb if he got out of jail.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
This is Florida, right?
It's Florida.
What's his face? What's his butt?
DeSantis. Italian boots guy. Yeah.
You say if you're a pedophile in Florida, you get the death penalty. So, hey, I don't know. He said it.
I mean,
burning the books anyway. You got to follow through with everything.
Yeah, I mean, DeSantis can fucking walk off a cliff, but I'm not fighting as hard for Stephan Sterns' life. I guess he's a monster, like truly an unforgivable monster. Yes, this is a gay Beavis and Butthead shirt. Cass reads tarot.
Oh, and Lily's Dark Material says, as someone with an engineering degree, I struggled putting together IKEA furniture. Thank you for making me feel better for putting together this.
Is it weird that I find it relaxing to put IKEA furniture together? Because it is relaxing to me.
Well, your brain works very you're good at taking all these compartmentalized pieces and putting them together, example for all these cases, and you're very good at putting them into a nice spreadsheet, whereas I'm just kind of fuck.
I think it's because I enjoy Legos. It's similar. Yeah. It's a similar instruction setup. And then you make a thing and you're like, look at this thing I made. At least at the table you can use it. When I'm done with a Lego set, I'm like, what am I going to do with this?
Make a Lego room.
I don't know if I can make my house that fucking sad. Yeah. But let's see. Grand PS, one of my coworkers said she used to work with Stephan Sterns at Disney. She said they called him the Krusty Krab.
Ew. Imagine that being your nickname. He's been a piece of shit forever.
Oh, yeah. No, I think people have hated him for a long, long time. But I'm so sorry for your coworker ever having to work around that.
He smelled bad. Krusty Krab sounds like he smelled like pre-cum.
Yeah.
Gross.
You know that beard's all gross and yuck.
My nicknames were Slamber, and that's because my car didn't have a hood on it. So I was pretty cool. That's a cool nickname.
I mean, Slamber is a cool nickname, but how does that connect to the car roof?
Because it was just Slamber.
Oh, just chaotic?
Yeah. Is you can never give yourself a nickname. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I didn't get a cool nickname in high school. It was mostly Freak, and the D slur was mostly what
D-slur's fun. You weren't Krusty Krab. That's just
as far as I know.
Anybody with that nickname, round him up. They did something.
Yeah, I can't imagine him being a pleasant person to be around. There's just no possible way. But yeah, so beyond Stephan Sterns getting the death penalty, they've released this new document. It's hundreds of pages of all of the interviews they've done so far with everyone, the people they've interviewed regarding who knew what, when. And in those documents, Madeleine's mother is on record saying, yeah, they slept alone a lot in a bed. I would go because I needed to get sleep. I'd go downstairs and they would sleep in the bed together all the time, which is already jail sentence right there.
Yeah. Jail
sentence to you. What are you thinking? I don't care who you are. It's not even if it's a biological parent. If you're 12 years old, if that 12-year-old's sick, a decent human being would sleep on the floor, in a chair, anywhere but cuddling in bed with, no, I'm sorry. I'm calling judgment right now. Don't fucking do that. What the hell?
Or just get him what I did. My mom gave me a throw up bucket and some saltines and a ginger ale and said, good luck, and then left the room.
Yeah, I just
sweat it out.
We had a throw up pot.
I hope it was exclusive to the one throw-up pot. Because
God knows.
I've been seeing this TikTok trend where they're like, you ever eat popcorn out of the throw-up bucket? And I'm like, sir, no. What are you talking about?
We had a pot. It was like a stovetop pot called the throw-up pot. And I don't know if my mom used it for anything else.
No.
But I will say it was always kept to one pot. So hopefully that was
just the throw-up
just for throw-up. Yeah. But that alone to me is There's a lot we've learned. If you want to go, a lot of people have covered it. You can find it online too, the documents that have been released. A lot of it's redacted, of course, and we're going to learn more, and we're probably going to see video footage of her mom being interviewed and stuff. But a lot of what people had to say really raises a lot of questions about Madeline's mother, and I am being judgmental. I don't know how much she might not have known a single thing about what was happening, but a lot of what people said makes it really sound like she resented her daughter for a lot of reasons, and I don't know if that's true, but Madeline was born. Her bio father got married to another woman like right after Madeline was born. Ooh. And does that mean her mother harbored some sort of resentment?
Like, if I never gave birth to my daughter, my husband might still be here?
Or, this child reminds me of this man who abandoned me, whatever. I don't know.
Damn.
I'm being judgmental, but I really, a lot of what they've revealed about her is, I'm mad. Her daughter was like living in hell, living with this disgusting man.
She just let it happen.
Just alone letting them sleep in bed together all the time is already, there's something fucking wrong with you. What is your agenda with that? Madeline, the child, did not want that happening. I'm sorry, but there's no possible way that's true. Mm-mm. Ugh. Yeah, so that's it. There's a little update. I'm gonna watch this play out. I'm gonna definitely follow the trial really closely, and I really want the mom to face some charges too.
Easy lay in it says sometimes they are resentful because the current partner is giving them attention.
Oh, 100%, which I think is completely a plausible scenario, that she was mad because very clearly Stephan was paying a lot, and he says this weird stuff too in his interviews, like, Madeline was like my best little buddy. She would come to me when she was mad at her mom. And I could see this resentment building up, and maybe a woman who's not dealing with her own issues being like, oh, these, he's giving favor to my daughter. And like, because that happens a lot, unfortunately, in right. toxic situations, blaming the daughter for the attention of men on the daughter.
Yeah.
Which is the saddest thing I can think of.
Also, maybe if the mom had some kind of help with postpartum, because postpartum depression is very real. We don't know a lot about it. After a woman gives birth, you're expected to sort of be some kind of perfect mother. Maybe some help. I know a mother told me, she said, I got resentful of my children because when I was pregnant, all the attention was on me. And then when I had the baby, the attention was on the baby. And I was like, okay.
Which in itself is completely fair and valid to have those feelings, but then you have to deal with them instead of just taking it out on the innocent baby and children. I don't think that's an inhuman. I think a lot of people feel that way. And that's okay to have those feelings, but you have to treat that and deal with it on your own way that's not going to cause pain and suffering to the kids.
Yeah, I do feel like that's a very normal, valid.
Yeah.
Like to, again, treating people with postpartum depression as human beings, like it's okay to say these things.
Right. And I've seen that a lot. Obviously, I'm not a mother, so I can't speak it directly, but I see a lot of mothers talking about the stigma of having angry or upset feelings or like feelings of resentment as the babies are, have postpartum. And I think that should definitely be destigmatized because that's human feelings.
Yeah.
But if you don't treat them, if you keep burying it, it's like then that manifests in ways that ends up sometimes hurting the kids, which is the last thing I think most of us would want.
When I was in Germany, and I don't mean to say Germany's the perfect place for kids or whatever, but I remember I was walking around and I saw like little things. Like there was always a play place for kids in every restaurant where they can just go and like play on a little horse or something, or like a stroller lane just for carriages. And I looked around and I thought, oh, like if we had these sort of small creature comforts, and therapy was very, it was very welcome and open there. I was like, oh, if we had this here, I might have a couple kids by now.
Yeah, and that's definitely a huge debate. And I don't think it's a debate. I just think it's a fact that the birth rate's going down, and the people who complain about that the most are the ones who fight against
helping
livable wages, against having maternity and paternity paid leave, child care, things like that. They don't want anyone to have any help, but they also want to moan and complain about
workforce.
Right.
Right, and the birth rate's going down everywhere. Like, this isn't just an American problem.
I personally think it's actually an organic thing that's going to happen.
Because I think women know, like, it's too many people. And also, like, fuck you. Well, a lot of like, older traditions is she is, you know, responsible for everything in the home. And then this sort of second wave feminism happened. I saw my mother go through this. It was like, not only you're responsible for everything in the home, but you also have to go work a big boy job. I just saw her working all the time, like, never sitting down. And then one time, you know, I just woke up one day and I was like, oh, I'm never doing this. Like, I'm just watching her run around.
Yeah, totally. I think parenthood should be a calling and not a preset.
No.
Should be a calling. Uma Mimo Me 68. Can't imagine feeling that way. I'm happily married and would still choose my son over my husband if anything were to happen. I mean, I'm with you. Especially if the kid's a minor. Yeah. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, I saw a very prominent sort of right-wing woman on Twitter back in the day, back when I was on it, not on anymore, but she was like, unpopular opinion, I choose my husband over my kids any day. And everybody was like, this is wrong. Like, please protect your children. What do you mean you prefer your husband to your kids?
Yeah, and I do think that there's really something beautiful about still maintaining your partnership.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of our friends who started having kids had those discussions before kids, being like, we need to always, like, if we're going to have a family, we have to also care about our relationship, that's important. And I think that's great. But in the situation of somebody being abused or somebody being mistreated, you can't choose the person who's doing that.
No.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you choosing? A monster?
The weed wife, I display my Lego sets in my therapy office. Hey, you know what?
Where it goes.
Maybe I should start offering therapy to people in my Lego room.
I mean, this is LA. There's a lot of unlicensed
I'm a life coach.
Yeah, you could just call yourself a life coach. Boom.
I'm not doing that, guys. Don't worry.
Second hustle, Natalie.
I'm not doing it. I respect therapists very much and counselors very much. I would never, ever in a million years think I could do that to somebody.
Right. I would be a bitch. They'd be like, tell me how you feel. And they would, I don't know, I'd just be like, blah, blah, shut up. No, I wouldn't. I'd be very nice.
I think you actually would be a nice therapist. So moving on from that case, we're going to follow it for sure. I'm going to follow that case. I really want the mother to also face charges. Another case we've been covering, I wanted to bring up briefly, is the Mica Miller situation. A lot of stuff keeps happening with it. Mica Miller was somebody who at this time has been considered dying by suicide, though there's a lot of questions raised about that death. And largely it was because her husband cannot help himself other than being a weirdo. So
right. This is the husband who's a pastor, and he went on pulpit and said, my wife died, don't talk about it anymore.
Yeah, so the reason this genuinely, I think, hit the internet so hard was that his sermon, the day after she was found deceased, he gives an entire sermon. He goes on and on, does his things, making jokes, and at the very end he says, just by the way, I want you guys to know the woman that you guys all know really well and love, he didn't say that part, but she died. So I'd like everybody to get up and walk out and never talk about it again, is essentially what he said, which is a weird thing to do.
Weird thing. I would talk about it.
Yeah. And it's knowing so much more about this, unfortunately knowing about this man, it's so indicative of somebody who cannot handle, his ego is so fragile that the idea of people questioning what happened was so unbearable to him that he had to tell on himself on stage. And this opened this huge can of worms, and he's really been in this place in the Solid Rock Church that he started of a really, I know the word cult is thrown around a lot, but he's making millions of dollars from this all of the people who go to his church. There is sex scandals, abuse scandals, SA scandals. There are other church leaders who apparently also knew things were going on. All of this has been going on for decades. He has charges against him from his last wife. Everything's been ignored because of my opinion, his status as a preacher. And her death just completely opened the floodgates on all of this stuff that's gone on. And I don't think that it should have had to have come to this. But it's why I end up getting really critical church culture, because it does sometimes welcome in guys like this who can use that position to abuse and manipulate people. And it's happening that's his tiny little church. The amount of pain and suffering and damage he caused there, I think they had maybe 500 members, which ultimately is not a mega church, you know? How many of these little microcosms are happening all over the country? This very same shit happening.
Just unchecked and untaxed?
Yeah. Because he was stealing money. He has a cash-only, we talked about this last time, he has a cash-only bar that he co-owns that he's been seen taking literally bags of money out, and there's no accounting for it. So the FBI is involved now, which of course they're there for the money and not the sex crimes, but whatever. So Mica's family has been fighting for her. They knew of how dark and bad this man was, and they were fighting for Mica. Mica was trying to get away from him. She actually filed a restraining order against him, and he was still able to make the decision to cremate her body immediately after, even though she had a fucking restraining order against him.
Yeah, she's still considered his property because she's his wife, even though she has a restraining order against him. And then he got to cremate the body that
might show evidence of something. So...
And also, she's a Christian. They don't usually cremate bodies. They like to bury them. I think cremation is a little more an atheist thing. So that's also like a big fuck you to her religion.
Well, it's also, I don't know there's no evidence to say that she was requesting to be cremated.
Yeah.
So it was completely his choice. And that raises a lot of questions too, of course. But now her family is fighting for her, and they've compiled this document called Mica's List, because here's some if you're watching, it's up on the screen right now. So Mica's List is all of the different ways that JP was abusing her, because as it stands in South Carolina, and I believe in many states, DV is only considered cuts and bruises, broken bones, physical bodily violence. Yeah. There's nothing in the state laws about coercive control abuse. And so...
Slashing the tires.
Yes.
Taking control of her social media.
So some of the things on this list, and you can find this online, things like medical abuse, forcing her to take medication that she was not prescribed.
Asking her to have sex with people that she didn't want to.
Yes, forcing her to... watch him have sex with people, forcing her to do sex acts that she didn't want to do. Church abuse, said that if she tried to leave, that God was going to smite her, and that it was the worst sin that she could commit. And she was somebody who was very much a believer in Jesus, and that really affected her decisions to leave him. Misuse of legal process, misuse of law enforcement. He would call the police on her for no reason all the time. Misuse of legal documents. Destruction of evidence of things that he was doing to her. Things like him posting topless photos of her on Facebook when he was mad at her. Different forms of telling her that she was broken and no one would ever love her, degrading her. What else is there? He took control of all of her bank accounts.
This makes me so mad, because she would do live streams where she would talk about her path to her mental health and how, I've been so blocked lately, and I've been asking God to make me a better woman and open up. And I'm like, girl, you were a great woman the whole time.
Yeah.
It was him.
Yeah.
And she put it, because that's a part of the culture and a part of her shithead husband. If put it on her, put it on you, and how better can I serve you? Girl, he's making you have sex with a guy under a bridge.
That's not even an exaggeration. That's what she's claiming in her journals.
Yes.
So, yeah, and she was just 30. She was very young, and he had been grooming her since she was 14 or so. And she was just coming into herself as a human being, as a woman, as an adult. Because you really are, for a lot of us, we're not really until we hit our 30s figuring some shit out.
No.
And he's, of course, much older than her. He's in his mid 40s.
It's a weird juxtaposition of girls mature younger, but then it's also, but women have the mind of children. So
yeah.
I don't know what you want me to be. Am I an adult as a child, or am I as a child adult? What do you want out of this?
This is what happened when she started to take account for herself, to give herself autonomy, to take a stand against things, is she ended up deceased in a really weird, questionable way, and he was tormenting her all this whole time, with the help of people, by the way. People from the church were helping him. So what they're trying to do as the family is create a law on, and call it Mica's law, where coercive abuse that can is so documented. It's not even just like her claims. They have mountains of evidence that this was happening.
Yeah.
His own writing, the things that he did, the police reports, repeated police reports, texts of him saying he was coming to Mica's sisters with a gun to get her back, armed and ready, against her will. Things like that. And that's not illegal, apparently. So
maybe a lining out of this is this could become illegal. Maybe in the future, if someone starts seeing like this happen, you can call it in and send his ass to jail.
Yeah. And I don't think that her life should have had to be taken away from her for this to happen. But I do hope that that's the consequence of this, is that if somebody's in this situation, essentially what their family's saying is if this was already on the law books, he would have already been arrested. He would have had an order. She would have had an order of protection from him. Mm-hmm. He could not have, if something bad happened to her, he couldn't control her body. She could have lived a life. She could have had a really nice, beautiful life.
And it's important to get this kind of stuff done now, these on the law, because I know a lot of people in higher power are talking about no-fault divorce being outlawed. So this would be a fault. You know, if your husband is like freezing your bank accounts and like
if you have a 5-page paper document of all of the things that he's done,
this would be a fault divorce.
I would hope so. That would be a fault divorce.
But if this doesn't get passed, then this wouldn't be a fault divorce. She would have to stay married to him.
I mean, this man is he is vile man, and his dad is also a vile person. That's a family, and his oldest son also has DV charges against him. So. Everybody. Family affair.
Cease Reads Tarot says, turns out you're not an adult till you have a kid and your parents die. My therapist. There is a big...
Wait.
Crazy.
What?
Your therapist says maybe time to switcheroo. Maybe time to go...
That's a take, I guess you could have. Take.
But that is a very common American and also kind of worldwide perception of you're not an adult until you have a child. And if I'm like a child-free woman like myself, I'm considered a child.
I mean, we're not doing that this generation moving
We're not
forward.
doing that.
We're not doing that.
No, you shut them down. You tell them to fuck right off.
Yep.
I'm not even debating. I talked to a guy who went to a very prestigious school in California, and he said, we talking about the debate class, and he said it was never about proving your point better than the others. It was about making them look stupid. And so to this day, I don't debate people. I just kind of either leave or I just try to make them mad.
Who said that?
This was a guy I don't want to name. You don't know him. He's not a comedian. But he said, like, in his very prestigious school, and let me know if I'm wrong in the comments. Let me know if he went to the wrong kind of school. But it was never about proving their point wrong. It was just making them look like a fool.
I mean, that sounds like a terrible plan. But
yeah,
I guess I could be along the same logic lines of a cop's supposed to close their case, not find who's actually guilty.
Probably.
I mean, that seems like the same kind of logic, which is, to me, bad. That seems bad, but what do I know?
What do I know?
I'm just a silly little girl. Yeah, so...
Sounds like some wealthy person bullshit. Yeah, Melissa, yeah, I think so. That's why you don't debate them.
Yeah, because that's... I like debating because no. I find value in debating. I like to hear other viewpoints. I think it's important to be wrong sometimes. And also sometimes it is fun if you know that you have a better opinion and you crush the other person. I'm sure that feels great.
Right. Well, because you're like an intelligent person from like a varied background. You're not like some asshole who's like with a trust fund who says they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps.
Yeah, I have a BA in dance, so I think I know what I'm talking about.
That's
okay.
Right, babe.
I will give you an interpretive dance about why you're wrong. So...
Ooh, no.
So I just wanted to give that if you guys want to look into Mica's list and maybe look into your own state and see what the laws on the books are, I think that would be really good for us to do that for California. I also want to do it about Pennsylvania, where I grew up, because I don't know how each state is handling this, but Mica's list here, there should be plenty of reasons to have. I mean, he should be in jail for fucking. Unquestionably should be in jail for
this. If I did any of these to somebody I wasn't married to, I would go to jail. So what does it mean? Because you're married to them, you can get away with it. Also, Ease Lay in it says they're talking about your body when you're mature, your body, but your mind cannot exceed the capacity of a child. It's almost like these kind of guys hate us. Not all of them, but like these kind of buttholes.
Yeah, and women fall into those. They
fall into it because they think, oh, if we just obey the rules, then we'll be protected.
Right. And you won't, bitch.
Well, usually that stems from trauma, but that's another talking point.
Yeah. Speaking of this trauma, I wanted to bring this up too. This is another law that people are trying to attempt to get passed, and this is in Pennsylvania. So if you want to look up Mica's list and then go see what the laws are like in your state, I think that would be a great idea. Because we do have at least that power to be able to reach out to people who make laws and say our voice and our opinions. So this is a different case entirely that took place in Westchester, in Chester County, Pennsylvania. I've spent a lot of time in Westchester, so this feels a little bit personal. But there's a little girl who has passed away. Her name is Melinda Hoagland. She was 12 when she passed. She was unfortunately very injured and underweight when that happened. She essentially died from injuries. And it was because her dad and stepmother had been what I can only describe as torturing her to death. She was pulled out of school in January and she passed away. I don't want to give the wrong date. What date was it? She passed.
Demon Limerick, yeah, these are hard stories. That's kind of why I gave the trigger warning in the beginning about more child laws. Just because you're a child or a married person doesn't mean you can't be protected.
I'm trying to find the date. I don't want to give the wrong date exactly, but it was this year. So
Eleanor Condit passed 69. Why do people do these things? Because they didn't have child laws when they were kids, and it's a cycle of abuse. That's why you have to talk about them now, and why it's so difficult. And like I cry sometimes, but we have to, because what else is? It's going to keep happening, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
I totally agree, and I do think this comes a lot from obviously trauma cycles, and partly because kids have received little to no protection outside of their own family. And a lot of times families are the ones causing the pain and suffering in the first place. So we're just here to sort of at least try to be a little bit of a voice for those kids who have no options. They are basically not people at that point. If their family is not protecting them, who's going to protect them? Which is, I get why people don't like government overreach and why they don't want the state involved in their lives. But sometimes it's because you're doing bad things.
Right, because you picture like the FBI kicking down your door because you fed your kids a Lunchable, but it's not that.
Right.
It's not that.
I'm not out here trying to be like, yay, government. I love the government. I love it. Yes. My point being, with kids like Melinda, and I'm going to explain a little bit about her story, but if there's not multiple eyes on them, and I don't mean in the family vlogger sense, but if there's not educators, counselors, people who can look at them objectively to make sure they're okay, they're not always safe in their own house. And if their parents are the ones causing the pain and suffering to them, there's literally no one advocating for them at all. And
and they're too little to get a job, to get out. I remember like praying for the day I turned 16, 17 that I could legally get a job and save money to get the fuck out of my house. I mean, I wasn't as bad as any of these cases. I can't imagine what they're going through, but you can't get a job. You can't run away. You can't go get a motel room. You're forced in this situation.
Yep. And so with little Melinda, she was living with her dad and her stepmom. Her mother lived somewhere else in Pennsylvania. And her stepmother, whose name is Cindy Warren, had already been in jail for child endangerment in the past. So the entire backstory of this family is really messy and not very nice, and there's a lot of issues. But Cindy, in her previous marriage, her husband murdered one of their kids. This is the beautiful couple here who starved their child to death. So that's the dad, bio dad, and the stepmother. So that one there is Cindy Warren. She spent time in jail because her stepdaughter was killed by her last husband, and her bio son was beaten so badly he had a brain injury. And she was not given the full charges. The former husband is still in prison. She spent time for child, like basically enabling in certain ways and stuff. So she already has this charge on her, right? Whatever was going on in their home, something was happening to this daughter. And there's a lot of guesses that maybe Cindy Warren felt, again, contempt towards the little girl, because it was her fiance. So the bio dad and her were not married; they were engaged. Mm-hmm. So that was to be the new stepmommy. And there's maybe some speculation that the stepmommy was angry that this bio daughter was getting attention from the dad, and he also is accused of doing this too. So it's not just her, but they had security with audio all over their house, and they essentially recorded this slow death of this little girl. She had been already being abused under the guise of punishments while she was still in school in the area. And teachers started to notice it. And they were calling agencies and they were telling the principal. And when that happened, they pulled the girl out of school and sent her to cyber school.
Where she's at home.
Yes. During that time period when she was at home until her death, they were punishing her by forcing her to do like hours and hours of like wall squat, like forcing her body into these positions that are not humane in any way, like depriving her food. They chained her to things. They made her suffer, and under the guise of punishment. And so as they were doing that, at some point they pushed too far, and she wasn't breathing anymore. They called 911, said that she fell off her bike. No explanation as to why she was covered in injuries and stuff. They life flighted her, and she succumbed to her injuries. And so they're now in jail. And it just makes me really feel so sad for her in general, because that area where she is so isolated. So it's so beautiful there. I really love that area. But if you're a little girl, depending on what part of this Chester County she was in, you might have a few neighbors on either side, but the nearest store could be miles away because it's really residential and like windy through the forest. And at night, it's haunting up there. Like there's no street lights, there's no businesses anywhere. So it's just pitch black forests. And if she was pulled out of school, a lot of her life was probably really, really isolated after that. Like probably not a lot of adults saw her.
School was the safe place.
Unfortunately, it was, and it is for a lot of kids, which is why I push back a little bit. I'm not anti-homeschool. I'm not saying you can't be a good homeschooling parent. My issue comes with people who won't. If you're a good homeschooling parent, you're doing a good education, I feel like you understand the need for kids who are homeschooled to be monitored in some way, because there are thousands and thousands of kids just like Melinda who have no access to any other adult. And a lot of times the abuse comes from home. So it's important to have other people seeing these kids, you know? Now, the thing I wanted to bring up about this is that now, of course, the parents have been arrested. I'm sure they're not getting out of jail. There's a law already in PA and probably in most states. I don't know, actually. We should check California. If you have a domestic violence felony or like a child abuse felony, you can't homeschool your children legally.
That sounds about right.
I don't know why you have whatever. I know people can reform. I know people can change and grow, and that's okay. But it's like, whatever. I'm not going to say. I think you can have child abuse charges, and there's ways back to having kids, but
I don't know, man. I don't know.
But there's no law in place for cyber schooling. If you have a parent who has a child abuse felony in your house, you're still allowed to cyber school them.
And didn't you say that they would like have her on camera like this? But imagine I'm like chained to the floor.
Yes, it showed in security cameras. So cyber school, the way that it's different, if you're not aware, homeschooling is completely with just generally a parent or like the community in the house. Cyber schooling, I think, really just started over COVID. Does anybody with kids know if that happened at all beforehand? As far as I know, that started during COVID, but it's continued on for a lot of kids where some of them are doing like half cyber school. I know our niece was doing something like that. But you can also fully cyber school still. Because that didn't exist before,
there's no law against it. So
there
you can
isn't.
pull your kid out of school and have him cyber school, even though you have like domestic violence charges or child abuse charges.
Yes. And so I guess people would say, oh, it's different because there's a teacher seeing your face every day. But in the case of Melinda and probably other kids, she was literally chained under the camera screen. So the teacher could see like this up. Her hands were shackled to the ground when she was in school because she was chained to things for a lot of the day all the time. And so, yeah, it is great that you can see her face, but it didn't save her.
No.
She was with adults who meant her harm, and the state and the community failed her in that way. The teachers tried, and I'm not trying to blame the teachers, but it seems like even if you make a report, you need to, if you see something or something makes you really concerned, you have to keep making reports or it'll get ignored. CPS also has, of course, a million problems, but there was nobody seeing her but the parents eventually. And so nobody could stop what they did to her. And she's gone. And so now there is a change.org petition that if you wanted to sign it, I've signed it already. It's to change the laws so that if a person who's living in the home has domestic or child endangerment felony charges, they are not allowed to cyber school the kid, because if she had been continuing going to school, eventually she would have been taken from that house, which is why they pulled her.
I'm confused as to how they still had parental rights to this little girl when they had so many charges against them.
Well, the bio father didn't.
That's why.
It's the step fiance did. Mothman Randy Savage, there was cyber homeschool in Florida before, but became more popular during COVID. Okay.
God, I remember because there's a lot of talks during COVID about how abuse rate went up. So rage dropped. So some people I knew dropped out and did cyber school instead before COVID, but now schools have a remote learning days. I see. I remember I was sitting on my front porch and there was a little girl trailing behind this woman, and the woman just like yelled at her in this horrible way of like, hurry up, you don't do anything right. You're such a terrible daughter. And it was late at night and I didn't know, and I feel guilty to this day. I didn't know what to do. Like, do I call somebody?
It's hard.
You know, and she didn't curse. She like cursed at her maybe, but she just said like, you're a horrible daughter. Like, it's one of those like, I don't know if the mom is upset right now or what, but, and it was during COVID, like the kids were all pulled out of school. So I just wondered how many kids were just subject to this.
And I mean, that was a huge issue during lockdown because some kids didn't eat anything other than at school.
Yeah.
But those situations are so hard. I have such a strong memory of when I was making horror movies in Philly like over 10 years ago, and we were like cycling, crashing at different people in the production team's houses depending on where we were shooting. And I was staying at this one guy's house who was, I think, AD at the time, and he lived in an apartment building, and the apartment above us was a couple who were obviously on, like, they were junkies and they had an infant, and their screaming fights were unbelievable, like so fucking terrifying. And I had, child services ready to hit on my phone so many times, and ultimately I always say, I don't know if this is going to be better for the kid. And I ended up never calling, and I think now I would.
Yeah.
Even though I know there's a lot of issues, I think about that kid now and wonder
what happened,
where they are, and if they're okay, because that kid was not safe in that house, and I regret not calling.
Because now we're only starting to talk about kids' rights for so long. Even myself, I was like, well, I guess, like subconsciously, I was like, well, I guess they're property of the parents and I don't want to like upset them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really tricky because sometimes it isn't better for the kids too. There's many kids who go through foster care who say they should not have been pulled from my house.
Right.
But there's no perfect answer. And every single situation is different. But there's things like hard lines, like with this Melinda. She was being so abused, the teachers were reaching out, and there should have been no reason for her to be able to be cyber schooled from her house. Just, it's bad. I don't know who said that, but someone is asking if I'd heard about unschooling. And yeah, you know, I've had people who I respect talk to me about the idea.
Is that where the kid gets to do what they want? Is that it? Because
I think that there's so many things that could be.
It could be nice, but let's be honest. Like there's so many times that I don't want to do something, but I got to get up and wash the dishes. Like,
I think that there's like certain ways, like neurological divergence. I would have learned a lot better not sitting at a desk all day.
Oh, same.
I think the problem with unschooling is that it's so unregulated that a lot of, especially, I'm going after the family vloggers because the mothers and the fathers put it up. So I'm watching what you're doing. This is what you're showing me. A lot of them just mean like, we're just not going to do school, which is not unschooling. That's just child neglect. Them to not learn it all. And also it is a way to avoid things. Like there's this one specific family vlogger woman who has, I think like 14 kids. She's pregnant right now. And she does the unschooling, which is just them being outside all day. And you find out she keeps saying she doesn't want government interference, and it's because CPS keeps getting involved and they keep moving around.
Cool.
You know, it's complicated. I know that there's no easy answer, but...
Oh, it looks like Cass Reed's Tarot says, yeah, unschooling is not just doing whatever you want. Sorry about that. I am uninformed. But she says, Cass Reed's Tarot, mainstream school is modeled by prison.
I agree. I think there's many issues with mainstream school, and I am not saying homeschooling can't be amazing. The problem with homeschooling is that without some sort of other outside accountability, a lot of kids end up suffering.
Yeah, what if we had like, you can homeschool, but there's also a softball league you have to put your kids in, or like a 4-H, or a boys and girls club, or something.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And it's not because I think if you're homeschooling and you're watching this that I think you're a bad person or that you're hurting kids. But a lot of kids are hurt in homeschool. Right. A girl I grew up who reached out to me recently she was homeschooled for a lot of her life, and she actually just told me, do you know that I was learning under the IBLP forum the whole time? God. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, they just handed me the IBLP pamphlet. She was somebody I grew up with in dance. And that was her entire education, was IBLP, which she's like, it wasn't good.
Right. I mean, I'm not that smart in school, but I at least know a little bit. I remember I was at a friend's house in Brooklyn a long time ago, and I picked up this book, and it was, I was like, what? It was like a kid's book. And I was like, what is this like teaching me to say different words? It was like, don't say this instead. And it was, come to find out, it was, my friend was roommates with a couple from Scientology, and they were like, put that down. We can't let them know we touched it. And I'm like, oh, what is that kid going to be raised to be? Don't say this instead. It was a lot of those little words because that's how they get you. Well,
and also I think somebody was saying unschooling is not just ABC. It's not that I think that unschooling can't be a cool thing. I would have learned in a lot better in an alternative format.
Montessori style.
Some people are calling unschooling child neglect is being called unschooling by some people. Not everybody is doing that, but some people are, and they're putting it on the internet. So I'm judging them based on their own showing me their life.
Right.
Somebody was asking me.
There's a reason you have to go to college to be a teacher. Exactly.
So, Demon Lemur Nick, do you think that it is a thing with parents enjoying the torment? You know, this is something that was like a sad realization to me, like really recently in time. I think I've said this on the show, but I always was under the impression that child abuse happened because we don't always give people the tools to be prepared for child rearing, and the pressure of it and stuff becomes a thing. And then as we've been doing this show, I realized there are just some people who are excited about it, that cannot wait to hurt a kid, even if in their head they're not saying, I can't wait to have this baby to beat them.
Right. Because
they are excited for that.
The kid can't fight back. That's why they enjoy it so much. Like, they could come at me. I can go get a gun. I can go use my fist some point, but a kid can't. And that's what they like. And
that was something that was a really bleak thought that I honestly I couldn't imagine. So I just was like, oh, it comes from the stressors. And then it's like, oh, no, I guess some people can't wait for that.
Yeah, they enjoy it. I will say that we have a brighter side at 6, and I do want to not end on like this. Did I send a funny video? But no, I don't know. Did I? I think
no.
No, we can't end on a funny video.
No, I'm saying I don't think you did. Did you?
I don't think I did. I'm sorry. I don't want to end on, because I was going to talk about this Irish boarding school.
Yeah, we didn't even get to the
babies.
We can talk. Let's talk about that next week. But yeah, we're going to bring up a little bit about like the traditional Irish unwed mother schools that they just found all the graves. Okay, well, maybe we don't need to do that today.
No, we can't. So, hey, puppies. Puppies.
Oh, look at the puppies.
Look how adorable. Oh, my God.
I love them.
I love that little teacup.
Look at that puppy. He's just all head. He's one head. He's got no body.
Can we look at Cocker Spaniels, like the King Charles Cocker Spaniels? Because
I love a King Charles Cocker Spaniel.
I think they're so cute. The hair, it's the dog. Oh my God, what is that?
Is that Puppy Surprise? Oh my God, I fucking remember Puppy Surprise.
Is he gonna kill me in my sleep?
No, that was you got the adult dog, and then the puppies were inside, and you didn't know what the puppies were, like how many, and the genders and stuff.
It looks like a woman with a bad wig on, like in a dog mask, just being like, "Yeah, I'm Puppy Surprise."
I think that's just how toys looked in the 90s. I don't know if they've maybe worked on like the 3D models of like faces more since then, but back then they only had a couple molds, I think.
I guess.
For everything.
But yeah. But hey, wow. Do we have any subs?
Yep.
We got so many subs, and thank you so much for subscribing to the show. That's how we keep this program growing. And I know it's been a very a hard topic, but it's good to talk about.
If you guys get a chance, you should go to the change.org petition and check the laws in your state for that, and for the coercive control laws. Because that can also, and that affects all genders. It's not just women who end up in those situations, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for the subs tonight. Axe Murderer Maddie. Uh-oh. Winter Hills Honey. Mothman Randy Savage. That's funny. Johnny Eponymous. How do you say that word?
Johnny
Eponymous? Eponymous? I feel like I should know how to pronounce that. Mobius is gifting 10 tiers, 1 sub. Thank you so much. Oh, a girl hit me really hard in the face with a plastic part of Puppy's Surprise, Melissa's. I'm sorry, but, at least you got to see those puppies.
That's what the 90s was all about. Just playgrounds. It was just the metal that would burn.
Oh, I bashed my mouth open on a jungle gym that was on solid concrete.
That's right,
when I was a little kid.
Teach them to fight back.
Blood everywhere.
We love you guys. We're going to take a quick 5 minutes, and we'll be right back. Thank you so much.
It'll be different the next half hour.
It will. We're going to have a lighter time. I'm going to get a drink.
Yay!